Hey, it's Tanya. And before I get started, first of all, we need to talk about how brave I am because there's a tree here, and you know what's up the tree? A squirrel. I'm terrified of them. So hopefully, I don't get attacked today, but if I do, it'll make an interesting video. Anyway, I am here to talk today about a trip that I was able to go on. It was a Washington, D.C. trip, and I was super excited. I've never gotten to go because every year that I moved in school was the year that my school would do the Washington, D.C. trip. So I was excited to finally do it as an adult. And so I am not going to force you to look at me the whole time while I yap. I'm going to show you little videos of the trip and hopefully you can enjoy that. So let's get into it. The first day was a travel day. We were able to get on most of the flights. We fly on standby since Jesse's a pilot. And so we're not always promised the flights, but the flight benefits are fantastic. Thankfully, Jesse is a pilot, and so we get to have opportunities that we wouldn't have had if it weren't for that. The first little stop I made was to a little boba tea shop. It was really cute, and they really made a good tea because it tasted more like tea than anything. And I feel like a lot of the boba tea around my area, it just tastes like sugar. So I really enjoyed that. We also got to go to the United States Botanic Garden, and I always thought it was a botanical garden, but I learned that it was the United States Botanic Garden, which was good to know, but I would have not known it if I didn't look it up afterwards. We also got to see the United States Capitol building, and it was really impressive. I thought it would be smaller for some reason, I guess. But yeah, when you go around it, it's pretty big. I think it's one of the more beautiful pieces of the area because it's just so unique. I feel like everything in Washington, D.C. was really unique, but I really enjoyed seeing the Capitol building. We didn't go in or anything, but we just kind of rode by. We also went to the Washington Monument because if you're going to D.C., you have to go to the Washington Monument. It was tall as was expected, but we also went farther to the World War II Memorial, and later we went to the Lincoln Memorial. It was cool because from the Lincoln Memorial you could see the Washington Monument. I really liked this little water video that I took. You'll see it. I kind of zoomed in and out a little bit much, but I thought it was really pretty to see against the water. But also the Lincoln Memorial was something that I've wanted to see since I was a kid. It was massive, but the main thing that I didn't expect was on the ceiling. They had these tiles and they looked almost like stained glass / marble. And I thought it was really cool because I didn't think that they would pay that much attention to the ceiling, but they really did. And so it was high traffic the whole week that we were there. A bunch of people were visiting, and it was the week that they were having the big parade for the military, and it was Trump's birthday. So there were a lot of people in town for both of those. And so a lot of things were actually more security than I expected, but also I had no idea what to expect because I'd never been there. So anyway, that day we decided to ride these little scooters and bikes. I didn't take any videos of it because I wanted to be safe driving because I thought that I would crash. Anyway, it was really fun to ride these little scooters around. I think Jesse and I actually had the most fun riding the little scooters and the little bikes that they had to offer because you could ride them on the sidewalk and just kind of go around people, and the sidewalks were pretty big, so you had plenty of space. There were some sidewalks that they didn't really make enough space, but I thought it was nice anyway. And when you ride on a bike, you're not supposed to ride it on the sidewalk, so we'd have to ride on the road, and I got a little bit of a slower bike one time, and a car decided to honk at me, and it was probably deserved. Let's be honest. Also on the trip, we went to the National Air and Space Museum. I learned that you had to have tickets before we went. So about a month before I got tickets. Now you don't have to pay for the tickets. You just have to reserve a spot in like a timeline to be able to go in. It's under construction right now, so about half of it seemed to be under construction, so we didn't get to see all of it, but it was still really cool. Jesse, like I said earlier, is a pilot, so that was something that he was really excited to see because They have planes and they even have Star Wars planes. But they had all kinds of things there that talked about the history of getting into flight, and they had some of like the first planes, and it was really cool to see the history of planes as well as how much it's changed over time. I thought it was really neat. Also, the size of everything. I feel like the Air and Space Museum does a really good job at, again, me and my ceilings. I feel like they did a really good job of decorating every single surface, including the ceilings. They hung planes and they did things really pleasing to the eyes. I feel like if I was going to work in the museum system, I would definitely want to work for the Smithsonian because they really try to go above and beyond to capture every single space and utilize it in some way. So I really enjoyed that about their different kinds of museums. We also went to the Smithsonian National Zoological Park. So the zoo, basically we went to the zoo, and it was pretty cool because you still, again, had to have a ticket. It was free, but it's just to reserve a spot so they didn't have too many people in the park. But it was really fun because I saw this little panda and he was just walking around doing his thing, but he's just like scratching his little booty. And I thought it was so funny. I feel like normally when I go to a zoo, they don't have a whole lot of movement on the animals. So it was kind of fun to be able to see some of the animals and their actions and doing little things. We also went to DuPont Circle. It's a little park in the middle of DuPont Circle is a bunch of shops. And I had read about it in a book recently, and so I really wanted to go and see what it looked like. It wasn't as interesting as I thought it would be, but it was also still pretty fun. We also went to the White House, but because it was the president's birthday as well as the big parade for the military, they had it kind of on lockdown. All of my videos or pictures were through a fence, and they had like major fencing around it because they were just trying to keep him safe. It probably was to do with security, I guess. It was kind of a bummer because I always kind of wanted to see the White House, but we did get to see it just from afar. We also went to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, and I thought that it was pretty cool. My favorite part of it was there was this wall, and you'll see these little tiny lights. They're just these little tiny lights, and they fill up all the walls, and there's multiple walls, and you'll see a sign that they put in there. I'll let you read it when you kind of see it, but it was talking about how millions of children and millions of people were murdered during the Holocaust. And so it was really sad to see all of these lots of dots. But they also had a wall where it was multiple pictures. And when I say multiple, probably thousands of pictures of skies from the various concentration camps. And I was shocked at how many photos there were. It took up an entire wall. And I mean, that building is not small. And it was just really disheartening to see how many camps it took to cause as much damage as they did. I've been reading a lot of books about the concentration camps and people that have survived and what different things looked like. And it's just really sad to see that the world didn't try to help them through everything. And I thought it was a really sad fact that shouldn't have happened. I feel like it was something completely avoidable, and it wasn't. So that is really frustrating for me, and I'm sure very frustrating for the Jewish individuals at that time. But looking back, I just wonder, how can we ensure that this never happens again, as well as how could they have noticed at the time that this was happening? And the problem is, I think people did know, they just didn't want to get involved. So that's something I've been learning lately, and it had to do with the trip. So I just figured I'd share a little bit. We also got to go to an Irish pub while we were in Washington, D.C. It was attached to our hotel, and so I thought it was really cute. But yeah, I feel like our traveling was beautiful. I feel like the travel was smooth. There weren't really many bumps in the road. So I was very thankful for our trip. Like I said, I feel like years ago I wouldn't have had that opportunity to be able to go. So I am just feeling extremely blessed. But my tip of the day would be try to find a local memorial park or something like that, some kind of monument in your area so that you can find the history of your area. Maybe you didn't know something. But other than that, I hope that you have a wonderful day. Don't talk to strangers unless they give you candy. And I'll see you next time. Bye.